The massive crystalline ship of the Galactic Council hung in Earth's orbit like a delicate ice sculpture, its transparent hull catching and scattering the blue light of humanity's home planet. The sight was breathtaking, but Ambassador Daho Park kept his face carefully composed as he watched through the observation window of Earth's orbital station. "They're certainly making an entrance," muttered Security Chief Han Yun, standing at rigid attention beside him. His hand never strayed far from his ceremonial sidearm, a fact that hadn't escaped Daho's notice. "Try to relax, old friend," Daho said softly. "This is a historic moment." But even as he spoke the words, he felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on his shoulders. Humanity's first official contact with an alien civilization would set the tone for all future relations. The station's docking bay hummed as it prepared to receive the alien shuttle. Behind them, a small group of Earth's highest-ranking officials shifted nervously. The air felt thick with tension despite the environmental controls working at peak efficiency. "Incoming transmission from the Council vessel," announced the station's eye. "They're requesting final docking clearance." Daho straightened his already impeccable uniform, the blue and gold of the United Earth government catching the light. "Grant them clearance," he said clearly, "and make sure our honor guard is in position." What the aliens couldn't see, and what gave Chief Yun some small measure of comfort, was the carefully positioned Earth defense fleet hiding in the moon's shadow. The ships were powered down to minimal systems, their profiles masked by the latest stealth technology. It had been Yun's one non-negotiable condition for this meeting. "If they're really peaceful," he had argued in the planning sessions, "they'll never know our ships are there. If they're not." He had left the sentence hanging, but everyone understood. The alien shuttle was surprisingly beautiful as it glided into the docking bay, its surface rippling like liquid metal. The gathered humans held their breath as the docking procedure completed with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure. The first alien to emerge was tall, nearly 3 meters in height, with iridescent scales that shifted color with each movement. Its name was Erix, as they would soon learn, and it was followed by 6 other beings of varying shapes and sizes. Each wore what appeared to be ceremonial robes in shimmering materials that Earth's textile industry could only dream of producing. Daho stepped forward, fighting to keep his voice steady. This wasn't just his moment, it was humanity's. "On behalf of Earth and all her people, I welcome you to our home." The translation matrix hanging in the air between them hummed briefly before converting his words. Erix's scales rippled in what they would later learn was a sign of pleasure as it extended 4 of its upper limbs in a complex greeting gesture. "We welcome Earth to the greater galactic community," Erix replied, its voice surprisingly musical through the translator. "We have watched your progress with great interest." Behind his diplomatic smile, Daho felt a slight chill. How long had they been watching? He caught Yun's subtle shift in posture and knew his security chief had the same thought. The alien delegation moved through the receiving line, each member performing their own unique greeting rituals. A smaller being that seemed to be made of shifting shadows offered what looked like a data crystal to one of the human scientists, while another alien that appeared to be composed entirely of crystalline structures engaged the Earth economists in a rapid discussion about resource management. What none of the aliens noticed, or at least what they showed no sign of noticing, was the careful choreography of the human security teams. For every alien that moved forward, a human guard shifted position. For every diplomatic gesture, there was a corresponding defensive adjustment. Chief Yun had drilled his people relentlessly for this moment. The Council's assessment team, a group of beings that seemed more mechanical than organic, were taking constant readings with devices that hummed at frequencies just at the edge of human hearing. They made notes in their floating displays, their expressions unreadable to human eyes. "Your species shows remarkable adaptability," Erix commented as they moved toward the conference room. "Few races achieve spaceflight so quickly after discovering industrial technology." "We are an ambitious people," Daho replied carefully. noting how the alien scales shifted to a deeper blue at his words. As they walked, the alien delegation marveled at the station's architecture, commenting on its efficiency and aesthetic appeal. What they didn't know was that this station, like much of what humanity was showing them, had been carefully prepared for this moment. The real heart of Earth's space program lay elsewhere, hidden in bases throughout the solar system. The day continued with exchanges of cultural information, diplomatic niceties, and carefully worded agreements about future cooperation. But beneath it all, both sides were taking careful measure of each other. The aliens saw what appeared to be a young, peaceful species eager to join the galactic community. The humans presented exactly the image they had planned to show. As the first meetings drew to a close, Chief Yun received a message from the hidden fleet. Their sensors had detected scanning attempts from the Council vessel, attempts that had bounced harmlessly off their stealth systems. He allowed himself a small smile. Humanity wasn't as naive as they might appear. Daho concluded the day's ceremonies with a toast using real champagne, a gesture that seemed to delight the alien delegates. As the bubbles rose in the crystal glasses, he caught Yun's eye across the room. They had succeeded in their first task, making a good first impression while revealing nothing of humanity's true capabilities. The real negotiations would begin tomorrow, but for now, Earth had taken its first official step into the galactic community. As Daho watched the aliens return to their shuttle, he couldn't help but wonder what the future would hold. Humanity had worked hard to appear peaceful and welcoming, but they had not survived countless wars and conflicts by being unprepared. Behind the moon, Earth's hidden fleet maintained their silent vigil, a secret insurance policy for a species that had learned the hard way to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. Captain Jin Lee stood silently on the bridge of the colony ship New Horizon, watching as 5 sleek warships materialized from hyperspace around his vessel. Their hulls bore the distinctive scarring and mismatched plating common to pirate vessels, particularly those belonging to the notorious Vith Consortium. "Status report," he said calmly, his hands clasped behind his back as he studied the tactical display. 2,000 colonists are secure in their cryopоds, Captain, his first officer reported. "All systems nominal, and our escort drones are still in stealth mode." The pirates didn't wait long to make their demands. Their leader, the brutish-looking alien with mottled green skin, appeared on the main screen. "Human vessel, this is Captain Vrock of the Fifth Consortium. Your ship is now our property. Surrender and we may let your colonists live." From their observation post at the edge of the system, the Galactic Council representatives watched with professional interest. They had seen this scenario play out hundreds of times before. The civilian vessel would surrender, the pirates would take their prize, and insurance would cover the losses. It was considered the civilized way to handle such encounters. But Captain Lee had other plans. "Interesting proposal," Lee replied, his voice carrying no trace of fear. "I have a counteroffer." He nodded to his tactical officer, who pressed a single button on her console. The space around the New Horizon suddenly came alive as 30 combat drones dropped their stealth fields. They had been flying in perfect formation with the colony ship, invisible to both conventional sensors and visual observation. The pirate captain's eyes widened in shock. "This is impossible. You're a civilian vessel." "A common misconception," Lee said as he gave the order. "Execute Defense Pattern Alpha." What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for years to come. The combat drones moved with devastating precision, their attack paths calculated by the ship's AI to maximize damage while minimizing the risk to the colony ship. The pirates tried to respond, but their weapons were still powered down from their attempted intimidation approach. The first pirate vessel exploded as 3 drones concentrated their fire on its engine core. The second tried to raise shields but was cut in half by a synchronized laser burst from 5 drones attacking from different angles. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, "Council observation post detected at the system's edge. They're watching everything." Lee nodded. "Good. Let them watch. It's time they learned that humans don't believe in leaving our civilians defenseless. The remaining 3 pirate ships attempted to flee, but the drones had already blocked their escape vectors. The 3rd ship lost its weapons array to a precision strike, while the 4th suffered complete power failure as electromagnetic pulses overloaded its systems. Captain Vrock's vessel was the last to fall. "Wait," he screamed over the comm channel. "We surrender. We accept your terms." "I haven't offered any terms," Lee replied coldly. "And pirates who threaten civilians don't get second chances." He turned to his tactical officer. "Disable their engines and life support. Let them wait for the patrol ships to pick them up." The entire engagement had lasted 5 minutes and 43 seconds. The space around the New Horizon was now littered with debris and disabled vessels. Not a single shot had reached the colony ship's hull. In their observation post, the Council representatives were frantically sending data back to their superiors. This was unprecedented. Civilian vessels weren't supposed to have military-grade drone escorts. They weren't supposed to have tactical AIs or weapon systems that could outperform military vessels. And their captains certainly weren't supposed to respond to piracy with overwhelming force. Lee opened a channel to Earth Command. New Horizon reporting. Standard Colonial Defense Protocol executed. 5 hostile vessels neutralized. No casualties on our side. Requesting patrol pickup for survivors. The response from Earth Command was equally calm. Understood, New Horizon. Patrol ships are en route. Proceed with your colonial mission. As the New Horizon prepared to resume its journey to Proxima Centauri, Lee reviewed the after-action report. The drones were already back in formation. Their stealth fields re-engage. To any observer, the colony ship once again appeared to be nothing more than a civilian vessel carrying sleeping colonists to their new home. "Sir," his communications officer spoke up, "we're receiving a message from the Council observation post. They're requesting an explanation for our response to the situation." Lee smiled slightly. "Send them the standard reply. In accordance with Human Colonial Protection Act Section 7, all civilian colony ships maintain defensive capabilities for the safety of their passengers." The Council observers would later report that this incident marked a significant shift in their understanding of human nature. They had assumed that humanity's quick acceptance into the galactic community meant they shared the Council's peaceful approaches to conflict resolution. Instead, they had witnessed something unprecedented. A species that wrapped its military capabilities in civilian disguise, that responded to threats not with diplomatic surrender, but with overwhelming force, and that seemed to consider this completely normal. As the New Horizon jumped into hyperspace, continuing its journey as if nothing unusual had happened, the Council observers began drafting a report that would send shockwaves through galactic society. Humanity, it seemed, had very different ideas about peace and security than the rest of the civilized galaxy. Captain Lee made one final entry in his log before retiring to his quarters. Standard day of colonial transport operations. Minor pirate interference dealt with according to protocol. All systems nominal. Proceeding to Proxima Centauri on schedule. In the years to come, this minor interference would be remembered as the moment when the galaxy first glimpsed the iron fist within humanity's velvet glove. But for now, 2,000 colonists slept peacefully in their cryopods, unaware that their safe passage had just changed the course of galactic history. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council sparkled under its crystal lights as Council member Sun Kim took her place at the speaking podium. The 1,000-seat amphitheater was packed with representatives from every major spacefaring race, their murmurs echoing off the polished walls. Distinguished members of the Council, Sun Kim began, her voice steady despite the hostile stares from many of her peers. Today we face a choice that will echo through generations. The motion to classify humanity as a dangerous species and begin containment procedures is not just premature, it's dangerously short-sighted. Security Director Min Park stepped forward from the shadows, his ceremonial robes rustling. The holoprojector hummed to life, filling the chamber with images that made many representatives gasp or retreat from their seats. Observe, Min Park said, pointing to a recording of human military exercises. Their ships move in patterns our tactical computers cannot predict. They treat the three-dimensional space of battle like it's a fluid medium, not a geometric grid as all known warfare dictates. The footage showed Earth ships performing maneuvers that seemed to defy the laws of physics, using gravity wells as slingshots and plasma trails as smoke screens. Several council members covered their sensory organs, overwhelmed by the implications. They armed their civilian vessels, Min continued, bringing up footage from the now infamous pirate incident. They hide military capabilities behind peaceful facades. Every human ship, every station, every colony could be a potential fortress. Sun Kim waited for the frightened whispers to die down before speaking again. Yes, humans have military capabilities that surprise us. But look at their actions, not just their abilities. In 3 years of contact, how many unprovoked attacks have they launched? 0. How many civilian casualties have they caused? 0. She brought up her own holographic display, showing human medical ships providing aid to a plague-stricken Zentari colony. They used their strength to protect, not conquer. Their civilian ships are armed because they value life, not because they seek conflict. That's exactly what makes them dangerous, shouted a representative from the Proxima sector. They're too unpredictable, too capable. We must contain them now, while we still can. The chamber erupted in shouts of agreement, but Sun Kim stood her ground. And how exactly do you propose to contain a species that can hide warships inside cargo vessels? That can turn their colonies into fortresses. That treats space itself as a weapon. Security Director Min Park raised his hands for silence. We have developed a containment plan. If we act now, using the combined fleets of all council races, a new voice cut through the chamber, causing every being present to freeze. An interesting proposal, Director Park. Perhaps you'd like to share the casualties your simulations predict. Ambassador Daho's voice emerged from the chamber's own speaker system, calm and measured. The security team scrambled to locate the source of the breach, but the human diplomat continued speaking. According to our analysis of your containment plan, you expect to lose 60% of your combined fleets, and that's assuming humans don't have any capabilities you haven't discovered yet. Would you like to know if that assumption is correct? Chaos erupted in the chamber. Security teams rushed to secure the doors while technicians tried desperately to cut the human feed. Council member Sun Kim remained at her podium, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. How dare you spy on a closed council session? Min Park shouted at the speakers. This is a violation of galactic law. Is it? Daho's voice was tinged with amusement. Your own charter, Section 47B, states that any species under discussion by the full council has the right to representation. We're simply exercising that right, since you forgot to invite us. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't just been listening. They had been following council rules to the letter while doing so. We believe in transparency, Daho continued. Every word spoken in this chamber has been transmitted back to Earth. Our people know exactly what you're proposing. They know the fears you harbor, the plans you've made. Perhaps now would be a good time to discuss real cooperation instead of containment. Sun Kim stepped down from her podium and addressed her fellow council members. The humans have just demonstrated exactly what I've been trying to tell you. They could have kept listening secretly. They could have let us vote and then revealed their knowledge as leverage. Instead, they chose honesty, even knowing it might provoke us further. The security teams finally traced the signal to a tiny device embedded in the chamber's own communication system. It had been there since the chamber was built, centuries ago, waiting for the right moment to activate. The vote before us is clear, Sun Kim concluded. We can choose fear and start a war we might not survive, or we can choose understanding and gain allies who clearly value both strength and honesty. I know my choice. Ambassador Daho's voice came through one final time. We await your decision with interest. Remember, humanity doesn't want enemies. We never have. But we're very, very good at dealing with them when forced to do so. The choice, as always, is yours. The containment vote never happened. Instead, the Council began the long process of understanding their new neighbors, a species that had mastered not just the art of war, but the far more difficult art of choosing when not to use it. As the chamber slowly emptied, Sun Kim looked at the device that had broadcast the human feed. It was elegant in its simplicity, yet so advanced that centuries of Council technology had never detected it. Like humanity itself, it had been hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to reveal its true nature. The massive Vith fleet appeared at the edge of the Proxima system, their advanced warships gleaming like predatory fish in the starlight. 300 vessels strong, they had come to teach humanity a lesson about defying the Consortium's power. Their ships carried weapons that could crack planets and shields that could withstand supernovas. Admiral G. Park stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Indomitable, studying the tactical display with calm interest. Behind him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, preparing for what was about to become a defining moment in human history. "The Vith fleet is demanding our immediate surrender," reported his communications officer. "They're claiming their technology makes resistance futile." Jay allowed himself a small smile. "Send them our standard response." The message was brief. "Come and take it." In their observation posts throughout the system, Council representatives prepared to document what they assumed would be a swift defeat of the human forces. The Vith's technological superiority was undeniable. "All wings, this is Commander Yuri Kang." The fighter wing leader's voice was clear and confident over the comm. "Remember your training. Execute Pattern Aurora on my mark." The human fleet seemed to be drastically outnumbered, with only 50 capital ships visible. The Vith commander transmitted a final warning, giving humanity one last chance to surrender before their destruction began. Admiral G's response was to give a single command: begin. What happened next would rewrite every military doctrine in known space. The human ships suddenly split apart, revealing that each vessel was actually a cluster of smaller ships held together by magnetic fields. Where there had been 50 targets, there were now 200, each operating independently. "Combat doctrine adaptation in progress," Yuri reported as her fighter wings deployed. Instead of flying in traditional attack patterns, the human fighters began moving in ways that seemed to defy physics. They used their own engine exhausts as weapons, creating plasma trails that confused enemy targeting systems. The Vith opened fire with their superior weapons, only to find that their targets weren't where they appeared to be. The humans had developed a system of micro-jumps that let them appear to be in one location, while actually being slightly offset in four-dimensional space. They're using curved space itself as armor, one Council observer reported in disbelief. They're actually bending the trajectory of enemy fire by manipulating gravity fields. Commander Yuri's fighters demonstrated maneuvers that no alien race had ever conceived. They flew in formations that looked chaotic, but were actually precisely calculated to create interference patterns in enemy sensors. Some ships flew backward, using their main engines as weapons while their momentum carried them along their original vector. Second phase, Admiral Jai ordered calmly. The human fleet suddenly scattered in what appeared to be panic, but was actually a precisely choreographed dance. Each ship's movement was calculated to draw the Vith fleet into a specific position. The Vith commander, believing he saw an opportunity, ordered his fleet to press their advantage. His ships surged forward into what appeared to be empty space. "Gravity web activated," Yuri announced. The human ships had created a three-dimensional web of overlapping gravity fields. The Vith ships found themselves being pulled in multiple directions at once, their mighty engines struggling against forces they hadn't known humans could control. "Now," Jik commanded. Human ships appeared from behind nearby asteroids, their hulls covered in material that had rendered them completely invisible to sensors. They opened fire not with traditional weapons, but with devices that turned the Vith's own shield frequencies against them. Their shields are protecting them from their own ship's energy emissions, A council observer noted with shock. The humans have turned their defensive systems into prisons. The battle that was supposed to last days was over in 47 minutes. The mighty Vith fleet hung helpless in space, their superior technology rendered useless by human ingenuity. Not a single ship had been destroyed. They had all been captured intact. Combat doctrine adaptation successful, Yuri reported as her fighters took up escort positions around the captured vessels. Enemy fleet secured with minimal damage to their ships. Admiral G finally stood from his command chair. Send word to the Vith consortium. Their fleet is now the property of Earth. They can ransom their crews back, but the ships stay with us. Let's see how they like having their own tactics used against them. The council observers spent weeks analyzing the battle. They had witnessed humanity take every rule of space combat and turn it inside out. Humans hadn't just won. They had introduced concepts that no other species had imagined possible. They don't think in straight lines, one observer wrote in his report. They see space as an ocean, not a grid. They don't just move through it. They make it move for them. The captured Vith ships would later become the core of humanity's research fleet, their advanced technology studied and improved upon by human engineers who saw possibilities their original designers had never considered. In her debrief, Commander Yuri summed up what would become known as the human combat doctrine. Space isn't empty. It's full of weapons if you know how to use it. Everything can be a weapon, a shield, or a trap. The only limit is imagination. The Proxima incident, as it came to be known, marked the point where the galaxy had to accept a hard truth. Humanity wasn't just another spacefaring race. They were something entirely new, a species that had turned their centuries of warfare on Earth into an art form among the stars. Admiral G's final report was characteristically brief. Enemy fleet captured. New combat doctrines proven effective. Requesting additional training resources to implement lessons learned. The Vith consortium never attempted another attack on human space. They had learned, as the rest of the galaxy soon would, that technological superiority meant nothing against human creativity and adaptability. The age of predictable space combat was over. The era of human warfare had begun. Council anthropologist Hai Li stepped up to the presentation podium, her data tablet clutched tightly in her hands. The briefing room was packed with representatives from across the galaxy, their forms ranging from crystalline beings to energy clouds, all united by a shared concern for what she was about to reveal. We are witnessing an unprecedented cultural shift, she began, activating the holographic display. Images of various alien worlds appeared, showing military parades, training exercises, and defense installations, all clearly modeled after human designs. The Zalaxians, who haven't engaged in warfare for over 10,000 years, have established their first military academy, she said, highlighting footage of the typically peaceful crystalline beings practicing human combat maneuvers. They're using modified versions of human training protocols. A murmur ran through the audience. The Zalaxians had been known throughout the galaxy as philosophers and artists. Their sudden embrace of military preparation sent shockwaves through the diplomatic community. Even more concerning, Hai continued, the warrior races of the Outer Rim are changing their approach to conflict. She displayed images of the notorious Krell, massive reptilian beings known for their brutal conquest of smaller worlds. They're abandoning their traditional attack patterns in favor of human-style precision strikes and defensive deployments. One of the council members raised a limb. Are you suggesting these species are preparing for war? Quite the opposite, Hai replied. They're preparing for peace, but peace on human terms. She brought up new data showing trade routes and diplomatic missions. The Krell haven't launched a single invasion since adopting human military doctrine. Instead, they're offering protection to smaller worlds in exchange for trade agreements. The evidence continued to mount. The Etherian Republic, known for its purely defensive technological focus, had begun producing warships based on human designs. The Mindweaver Collective, which had always relied on psychic abilities for protection, was now training physical combat forces. But here's what's truly remarkable, Hai said, pulling up a galactic map. Conflict across known space has decreased by 47% in the past year alone. Species that adopt human military doctrine are less likely to engage in actual warfare. She played a recording from a human military instructor teaching alien students. The best victory is the one you never have to fight for, the instructor explained. When your potential enemies know you can defeat them, they're more likely to talk than fight. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives argued that this militarization would inevitably lead to war. Others pointed out that the opposite was happening. Species were becoming more diplomatic, not less. The humans call it peace through strength, Hai explained. But it's more than that. They introduced concepts that many species had never considered. She displayed training footage showing alien troops learning not just combat, but disaster response, search and rescue, and peaceful conflict resolution. A delegation of Krell warriors had recently visited Earth's military academies. Instead of seeking to learn better ways to conquer, they had been fascinated by human concepts of defensive warfare and proportional response. Why destroy an enemy, their leader had asked, when you can turn them into an ally? The humans have achieved something remarkable, Hai continued. They've shown the galaxy that military capability doesn't have to lead to military action. Their approach combines strength with restraint, power with responsibility. She showed statistics revealing that species adopting human military doctrine were also adopting human diplomatic practices. Trade was increasing. Cultural exchange was flourishing. Even traditional enemies were finding common ground in their shared appreciation of human strategic thinking. The warrior races respect human strength, she explained. The peaceful races appreciate human restraint. Both groups are learning from human examples, but not in the way we feared. The briefing room's atmosphere had shifted from tension to thoughtful consideration. The representatives were beginning to understand that they were witnessing not just a military revolution, but a cultural one. The humans have a saying, Hai said, displaying her final slide. If you want peace, prepare for war. We used to think this was a contradiction. Now we understand it's a sophisticated approach to maintaining stability. She showed final footage of a joint training exercise where formerly hostile species worked together under human guidance. They're not just teaching combat, she observed. They're teaching cooperation, discipline, and mutual respect. As the briefing concluded, one of the elder council members spoke up. When humans first joined galactic society, we feared their capacity for violence would destabilize everything. Instead, they've shown us a new path, one where strength and peace aren't opposites, but partners. Hai nodded in agreement. The humans have changed us, but not through force. They've done it by example. Species that once saw only submission or dominance as options now understand there's a middle path, being strong enough to defend yourself while wise enough to avoid using that strength unnecessarily. The implications were clear. The galaxy was transforming, not through conquest or coercion, but through the gradual adoption of human ideas about power, responsibility, and peace. It wasn't just military doctrine that was changing. It was the fundamental understanding of how civilized species could interact. As the representatives filed out of the briefing room, Hai added one final note to her report. The humans have accomplished what no species before them could. They've made peace more practical than war, not by eliminating conflict, but by mastering it so completely that actually engaging in it becomes unnecessary. The cultural shockwave would continue to spread, reshaping galactic society in ways that would be studied for centuries to come. And at its center was humanity, a species that had turned their long history of warfare into a blueprint for lasting peace. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council gleamed under the light of 1,000 stars, its ancient walls now adorned with symbols from Earth alongside those of the founding species. Ambassador Ta Kim sat in the newly created high seat, a position that would have been unthinkable 2 decades ago, when humanity first reached for the stars. Below him, representatives from hundreds of worlds debated, discussed, and worked together in ways that had seemed impossible before humanity's influence changed everything. The Krell warriors now sat peacefully beside the Zalaxian philosophers, while energy beings floated harmoniously among crystalline life forms. The border dispute between the Centaurian Alliance and the Rigel Confederation requires immediate attention, announced one of the junior council members. Both sides have requested human peacekeepers. Tai allowed himself a small smile. Just 20 years ago, these same civilizations had voted to contain humanity as a dangerous species. Now they sought Earth's protection and guidance. Admiral Song's hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. Her fleet, the famous Sentinel Squadron, hung in space near the troubled border. The mere presence of human warships had already caused both sides to withdraw their attack fleets. No shots have been fired, Song reported. Both sides are willing to negotiate. They know we're here not to take sides, but to ensure the peace holds. Her ships, gleaming silver against the darkness of space, carried weapons that could reduce planets to ash. But they hadn't fired a single shot in anger for over 5 years. The council session continued with reports from across known space. Trade was flourishing. Cultural exchange had reached unprecedented levels. Even the infamous pirate clans had largely transformed into legitimate security contractors, following the human model of controlled strength. The Andromeda Defense Academy has graduated its first class, reported the education minister. The footage showed alien cadets training alongside human instructors, learning not just combat techniques but the philosophy behind them. They've already received requests for graduates from 17 systems. Ta watched it all with a sense of pride mixed with humility. Humanity hadn't sought to rule the galaxy. They had simply refused to be ruled by it. Their approach to strength and peace had resonated with both warrior and peaceful species in ways no one could have predicted. A young Krell diplomat approached the high seat. Ambassador Kim, my people once thought strength meant constant combat. You showed us it means having the power to fight and the wisdom not to. The massive reptilian bowed with respect, a gesture that would have been unthinkable in the past. The chamber's activities were interrupted by an urgent message. A previously unknown species had emerged from deep space, approaching council territory with what appeared to be hostile intent. The old council would have panicked. The new council turned to humanity. Admiral Song, redirect your fleet, Tai ordered calmly. Standard first contact protocols. Show them our strength, but offer them peace first. The Sentinel fleet moved with characteristic efficiency. Within hours, they had positioned themselves between the unknown ships and council space. Their presence alone made the newcomers pause. We'll make contact, Song reported. They'll either learn to coexist peacefully, or they'll learn why that's their best option. Her words reflected the new galactic philosophy. Peace guaranteed by strength, diplomacy backed by capability. As the day's session drew to a close, Tai retreated to his private office. The walls were lined with mementos from humanity's journey from feared newcomers to respected peacekeepers. The first contact protocols, the pirate incident reports, the containment vote records, all reminders of how far they'd come. He activated his personal log, a habit he'd maintained since his first day as ambassador. Another day of peace in the galaxy, he recorded. Not the fragile peace of the old council, maintained through weakness and compromise, but the solid peace of the new order, built on mutual respect and shared strength. Outside his window, Earth's defense fleet conducted training exercises with ships from a dozen alien worlds. Their formations were perfect, their movements synchronized. They weren't preparing for war, they were preventing it through their very existence. The galaxy has changed, Ta continued in his log. Not because we conquered it, but because we showed them a better way. We taught them that peace isn't achieved by avoiding conflict, but by being so well prepared for it that conflict becomes unnecessary. The final item on his desk was a report about new defensive installations being built by formerly peaceful species. They weren't building weapons of war. They were creating shields of peace, following the human example of strength tempered by wisdom. As the artificial night cycle began in the council station, Time made his final log entry. 20 years ago, they feared us because we were too good at warfare. Now they respect us because we're even better at peace. Perhaps that was our true strength all along. Not our capacity for violence, but our ability to channel it into something greater. The stars continued their eternal dance outside his window, watching over a galaxy transformed not by conquest or submission, but by the example of a species that had mastered both war and peace, showing others that true strength lay in knowing the difference between having power and using it.